Yo, what's up, good people? It's the boys from the Phantom Geek Zone back again. I'm Izzy,
I'm Riyaal.
as per usual, and yeah, first things first, I mean, at this stage, I feel like all our little upgrades, it's nothing to be surprised by. And I mean, hey, if all the movies we're covering have their fun little Easter eggs, why can't we, have little things that people can look forward to? So this time around, it's of course, our little setup. Yeah, we decided to just push the upgrade on that one as well. Hopefully not, not to a point where we're gonna get a little too comfortable and distracted, but yeah, now we're gonna remain on point as always, man. So yeah, let's get right into it. This time around, we're gonna be firstly continuing with our DCEU recap series, and we're gonna be touching on Black Adam. Quite an interesting movie, quite an interesting backstory,
One of the last ones.
Yes, towards the tail end of the DCEU universe. And so yeah, let's just start off by setting the scene as far as the time in which this movie came in, to expand on your point about it being towards the end of the DCEU. Firstly, I will also say, part of the interesting thing about the DCEU movies in particular and watching them is kind of the reminder of how much further it extends beyond the Zack Snyder movies. Because, I mean, look, we're Snyder boys all day, every day, but whenever we delve into the other movies, like, oh yeah, there was not only this movie, but like, other tones that come into play and that also informs me as far as whether or not the DCEU had to die, because I tend to think of the DCEU and the Snyderverse as one thing. Like, the DCEU should have continued so we could see Zack Snyder movies, but no, it would have been a continuation of these other stories as well, right? But that aside, speaking of which, this is not a point where just about everyone has turned their back on DCEU. The fans aren't really happy because of the quality of what they get in. The studio's not really happy because of the money that they're getting back, or perhaps the lack thereof. And The Rock steps in, Dwayne Johnson is
most famous man on
listen,
the planet.
I'm a big time producer. Let me step in. I've been interested in this character. Let me come in, bring it to life.
Like, he was a fan casting for years, wasn't he?
I believe so.
Yeah.
So he's like, no man, let's see if I can, do my own real life superhero mission and save this universe. And it was a contentious decision. Not necessarily as far as his casting, again, if the fans wanted it, then that's fine. More in terms of how he pushed his weight around and made certain things happen. Number one being, again, as per usual, normal disclaimer stands, we're not comic book geeks, we're more movie geeks.
Yeah.
But the comic book fans are always going to be at the forefront of whatever the opinion is, be it good or bad. Yeah. And in this particular case, it kind of went towards the bad side of things because in the original story,
the whole narrative changed.
Exactly. Black Adam and Shazam are
enemies.
Yeah, very closely tied together.
So as far as I know, from backstories and what I've seen, Black Adam's always been a villain.
Yes.
A villain or kind of an anti-hero-ish type character, but more on the villain side. Whereas in this narrative, he was more of a anti-hero slash hero.
Yes.
Yeah, he wasn't a villain per se. But there were elements to allude to him being a villain.
Yeah.
But he wasn't.
That's one element that people are not happy with as far as him changing the original story. But again, the bigger one was the Shazam portion of it. Yeah. Because he basically pulled a Christian Bale in a sense. So there's been this rumor. I don't know if it's true, man. No one has confirmed it. Certainly not the cast, behind the scenes people. But it's always been said that Christian Bale's one condition for signing on as Batman is that Robin should be nowhere near the script.
Okay.
Which is weird on a couple levels. One being, I don't even understand how Robin would fit in a Christopher Nolan type of universe, And the other is, why the hell would you go to bat to have that be in a contract? But as I said, unconfirmed. So in a similar vein, Dwayne, the Rock wanted nothing to do with Shazam in this particular story, which again, for the core fans and the people who know the backstory, makes absolutely no sense. look, you can have Batman without Robin. We've seen it many times. Not to mention the execution was damn near perfect as well, right? In this case, the same can't necessarily be said, especially if you look at the level of backlash. That's how closely tied, the two characters were. So on a narrative level, basically, he wanted to throw his weight around, have certain things go by, his way, not necessarily how it should have been, shall we say.
We know The Rock does that often.
Exactly. Speaking of the interesting times in which this movie came out, he had also started developing quite the public reputation as far as his ego and how he can mix things up on set. The most famous one, of course, being with
Fast and Furious.
Vin Diesel, on the Fast and Furious series.
He did it most recently in the WWE as well.
Yeah, so everywhere he goes, the bigger he gets, the more weight he throws around. But to make a long story less long, essentially it led to a movie that people felt did not quite live up to what it was supposed to be, and ultimately failed the mission of, trying to save the DCEU. Because remember, you're already coming at a point where just about everyone is done with this. Yeah. And to do things that add to the sourness, it's not going to help the cause of trying to save, the universe at large. So with that established, I say we get into this movie. What did you think of it?
I was actually likening it to Aquaman. It's a nice movie if you have nothing to watch. Mm-hmm. It's a nice run-of-the-mill movie, good to watch, but nothing particularly special. I mean, the narrative that they created was a nice little backstory there. Mm-hmm. Just to give you some insight, he woke up after 5,000 years to save an oppressed city, and he had kind of a redemption arc type of story for him. Yeah. Because he wasn't the hero, never considered himself the hero. Mm-hmm. And then that little twist that came in at the end, towards the end of the movie, where it's actually his son is the hero. It was a nice little twist. So I mean, in terms of that, it was nice, simple storytelling, told relatively well. Yeah. So it makes for an enjoyable movie, but nothing that'll, stands out. Like, say for instance, a Man of Steel. Or something like that. Yeah. So I don't know how you feel about the story as well.
For me, interestingly enough, this is now going back to when the movie originally dropped. This is, 2022, give or take. So it's also post-COVID, yet another element to the context of, the world at large in which this movie was introduced. It's post-COVID. People aren't rushing to the cinema as they used to be. It takes a little more to convince someone that something is worth paying for after all the financial woes just about the whole world went through. Now, with all the stuff that had been said about it floating online, I was like, look, I usually don't try to let that stuff influence me, but in this particular case, I was like, you know what? I'm also out here on my post-COVID vibe. I'm not trying to rush to see this, so I let it slide. And of all places, I was at the barber, and then they had it playing on the TV, so couldn't hear a damn thing. But while waiting, it was quite a busy day. I was like, okay, what the hell? So I'll be watching every now and then, and I remember feeling like, no man, this is actually, I don't know, it feels like it's something that's not necessarily a waste of time, as everyone else had been implying.
Yeah, I don't think it's as bad as people made it out to be.
Yeah, so I'm basically building up to the realization of that. So I was like, okay, let's see. So it hit streaming, I checked it out, and controversial though it may be, I think it's one of the more underrated movies in the DCEU universe. Now, don't get it twisted. I'm not saying it's one of the most amazing movies that they've had, but certainly overhated and grossly underrated. I remember enjoying this movie and thinking to myself, nah, man, I actually should have gone and checked it out at the cinema,
I would say, like, I enjoyed the CGI. Like,
yes, it was done quite well.
There's a lot of it, but it was done well.
Yeah, and overall, I don't think DC has actually had an issue with that. Certainly not this DCEU.
It's only the mustache.
Run that but then, the Justice League mustache gate, yes. But that aside.
But other than that, I mean, I've enjoyed the DCEU.
CGI. The CGI has been on point for quite a lot of their movies, if not all. Now the gap in between us watching to record this and when I initially saw it was about 3 years, give or take. And yet again, my opinion wasn't changed. In fact, I remembered that when I watched it, I enjoyed it more than I had anticipated, but I wasn't really looking forward to seeing it at the same time. I felt like I might feel different, or it's almost like I lean more to the public opinions as opposed to my own, because I hardly remembered a single detail of it. Not in a bad way, but just because it has been so many years since I've seen it. But again, upon watching it, I was surprised. Like, no, man, I'm enjoying this thing. Yet again, rewind to the whole notion of the comic book world and what happens now, which is a conversation we will never be able to avoid. It comes up in every single movie because that's what a lot of people drive their opinions on. Whereas for me, I'm like, just give me something that I'm gonna enjoy. Look, on the one hand, in spite of how much I enjoyed the movie, I'm still like, why did this guy go so far from the source material as far as the Shazam alignment, essentially?
Because it had like the same saying, the wizard was the same wizard.
Yeah, exactly. The catchphrase is the same, and even
the suit looks the same. It's just a different.
Yeah,
color,
it's the same, blueprint essentially, and then for the two different sides of the same coin. Not to mention, right? He stopped Henry Cavill Superman from appearing in Shazam, some way, somehow. Yeah. He was like, I want Superman to be in this one, because he wanted to fight Superman in one of the coming movies. So that it was a lot of things that he did, man. And as much as I'm only remembering the select few, so I was like, all of that nonsense is unnecessary. But at the end of the day, I still got what I feel, was quite a solid movie. Actually, I do still understand though why it couldn't save everything. It was a little too late. But if it had come out at the right time, I think things could have, gone pretty well.
Perception would have changed a little bit.
Yeah, especially because if you look beyond the movie, it's not the movie, sorry, just the Rock's character and, the whole Black Adam thing. All the other elements in it, I enjoyed quite a lot, starting with the setting.
The city was, just the way the city was done. And then the theme of oppression throughout.
And keep in mind, right, again, it's a superhero movie at the end of the day. There's certain tropes you can't avoid, It's like, someone needs rescuing, someone's going to do the rescuing. It's the beginning, so there's probably doubts, the hero has within himself, someone was convinced of, all this stuff, cool. But the setting, for me, I was like, I don't recall ever seeing this before, if you think about it.
It's always like a metropolitan type.
Exactly, a nice modern city and whatever.
A Western city.
It's like all those memes, they're like, in the movies we're gonna save the world, in the world it's just America, not even exactly. I was gonna say not even just America, like very specifically New York. If it's other countries, they'll go there for a random save, Iron Man. As much as we love it, there was the whole thing where he went to Afghanistan. He did his little rescue mission thing, and then back to New York. That's, again, talking about tropes that tend to come up quite a lot. But as far as having the actual oppressed people have their own hero, and the whole story takes place within that particular, aspect, and they are, dead set on referencing and mentioning the whole idea of, guys are oppressing us. Why is it when these other guys come through?
And what is it? We need our own champion,
Yeah, man. So they made it a self-contained story as far as the city is concerned. So that, for me, is arguably my favorite element of the entire thing, And on the subject of things that we enjoyed about it, the other characters, story points.
I mean, on the rewatch, I had forgot Pierce Brosnan was in the movie.
Oh, okay.
Dr. Fate.
Yeah.
So it was nice to just see those characters again, Hawkman, Dr. Fate, and Atom Smash, and the other lady. Yeah, so I forgot the Justice Society was there. It was nice to see them. Amanda Waller, I completely forgot about her.
Yeah, that little cameo.
She's everywhere.
Still had the presence. Yeah.
Yeah, and she was the one who mobilized this whole thing. Also, I think I also liked the idea of the demon, or I don't know what they call it. The idea of it and what it represents. As well as just the artwork. Like it looked.
This movie looked beautiful.
It looked beautiful.
It looked beautiful, and it says a lot. Not to incriminate myself or anything, but it says a lot where you can still pick up a certain level of quality when you watch movies, on certain platforms, shall we say. So I was like, damn, it's still looking nice and crisp. So that's how you know that there was such a level of
because even
attention.
like there's a lot of lightning and slow-mo, and it worked.
Yeah, and because when I saw the lightning, I was like, ish, are you doing that typical CGI fight type thing, but as you've acknowledged, it came out nice and crisp, that it wasn't an issue or a distracting element.
And then building onto that with the CGI and the artwork, it's like Man of Steel, right? The power scales in the fight scenes matched.
Yes.
And it worked.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
it wasn't
with the destruction of the city, the building, whatever it is, like just throwing people and
ripping the demon apart. Like,
man, that was incredible. Yeah. And you know how I feel about them actually, going for it. So I love that quite a lot, man.
So I think I really like the CGI and the cinematography. Also the costume designs, the superhero costume designs were all on point. They all differed very like Black Adam was more like magical.
Yes.
Dr. Fate also magical and shiny, whereas the others were like more human and like
armor / practical type of.
So I think costume design as well. I really enjoy that as well. And then I think those are my main ones there. So the cameos.
I'm glad you're actually saying that, because I was wondering. I was like, damn, I'm enjoying this quite a lot. Like, I wonder if Riyaal is on the same level, or what's the story there. Because we certainly never mentioned this movie once before in our own conversations. But we
keep it for you guys.
There was quite a lot to enjoy about this, and I'm glad I'm not the only one who saw it, because it feels like on the outside I didn't really see a lot of people mentioning any of those elements. So as you said, Pierce Brosnan. So for me, I think he's one of the guys I actually remembered being in this movie. But a fun surprise. So the guy who plays the brother, the guy who's driving the taxi. He's this comedian. His name is Mo. He's got a show on Netflix as well. This is pretty dope. I need to go back and finish it actually. So watching this movie was like a nice reminder. But he came through so nicely. Like, the character was fun across the board, man. Especially we took like the main cast. Everyone, they did their parts basically. Like, even the little kid, the mom.
The mom being a rebel. Like,
and leading the charge. I actually enjoyed that quite a lot.
And even you say the comedian, like even him, he was the comic relief, but he had good scenes. Like
there were still nice heartfelt moments. It wasn't like, even the comedy, whether it was The Rock saying it of all people, it wasn't that typical MCU forced comedy.
Yeah, it was. How can I say? It took the best elements. It paid homage to DCEU and what it used to be in the beginning. But it still allowed itself to be lighter. And it didn't even feel like an overcompensation, because remember there was that struggle in the DCEU space. Like, man, we've gone a little too dark, let's see. And then, as you said, with some of the movies maybe a little too light and whatever. But this one, like, the balance was struck quite nicely, because what people tend to forget in terms of making something lighter is that not every single thing has to sparkle and light up. Have those elements in there, yes, but you can still have your dark, brooding characters, which of course Black Adam was, and have it mesh and blend nicely into the fun elements that you want to incorporate. I mean, even Hawkman, like the sternness, the seriousness all the time, and it's
the
like,
scolding,
we'll talk.
You and me, you and me,
you know what I mean? He's doing it seriously, but it's still funny.
Dog. And Atom's whole nervousness, like the whole time and whatever. Like, I loved it, man. I loved it. The costume design, I agree to a point. It was Black Adam's first suit that I had an issue with.
Okay.
And the whole time I kept saying to myself, please tell me he's going to get an upgrade. Please tell me he's going to get an upgrade, because then it'll make sense for the suit to be that bad. Yes, he got the upgrade, but I don't know, man. I can't even quite put my finger on it, but I still feel like it could have been a lot better, whether it's the balance of the colors, or not so much the design, more so like just how the colors were coming through with that one. Because at the end of the day, it is, a black diving suit, essentially. So, but I feel like, that being said, it's not that difficult to make it something dope. We've seen it so many times. If you want to talk about Batman's suit or whatever, like just adding some characters to the suit itself. It was like a young little onesie with the lightning. And I'm like, no, man, just give me more, man. Give me more, especially with that second one. Something we glossed over earlier. The twist, dog. They had quite a few, actually. First, of course, is the whole thing of... Because I was confused, man. Even the first time watching it, I remember they were speaking the native language there. And I'm like, I know, this voice sounds familiar. And there was the one shot from behind where they were still showing the slaves, back in the day. And then the shot from behind, I was like, oh, so the tall guy is Dwayne, was The Rock.
Yeah,
I was like,
they didn't show his face.
Yeah, but I could tell that it was him. I was like, oh, okay. And then I'm like, wait, so does the kid become him, or do they just look the same? Or I was a little confused by that. And then at the end there was a reveal. He's actually the dad. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. That was dope. There was a thing with the crown.
Yeah, when they killed him and they thought it was over.
Yeah, and the fact that firstly, even the guy. I mean, look, when
the guy, yeah, I get what you're saying.
When he was the friend who betrayed them, that initially I was like, cliched. But then when he said he's the bloodline for the throne, I was like, that's a nice twist.
Motivation.
And then on top of that, the whole thing about the mirror reversing the writing, whatever, and say, no, death is the part two. That I found, especially the fact that it was the guy's actual intention to die. I was like, yo, layers on layers on layers.
And then also Dr. Fate, like his premonition is like,
death, and
Hawkman, you're gonna die, you're gonna die. And at the end of the day, he's not the one.
And what I love was that
they still showed that visual.
Yes. What I love was that it was the same premonition that came to life. But you understand there was a twist behind it, because his whole thing was always, you can't change fate. It is what it is, whatever. And I remember when he said, no. Yeah, I saw you die, but that's how I prevented. And in my mind, I'm like, no, man. But whatever it is, from That's So Raven to, this movie itself, anytime someone with psychic powers has a vision, you can never change it.
Yeah.
So I was like, you're now messing with those rules of fate and destiny that y'all have always established. But again, it showed that, no, this was always going to happen. But I have my death, and then, this is how he circumvents it. I was like, okay, cool. I'm glad that you still kept that image. Because when I saw him stab, I was like, does he still die? What's happening? I was even unsure, So, and that's the thing about the twist. If it gets you, then you know it was good. And they certainly did that in this case, We do have to touch on, we always say, superhero movies, you need a strong villain and that sort of thing. On the flip side, as far as everything hero related, the struggles of the people, the heroes themselves. I mean, you said, the costumes, the portrayals, everything was on point. So that part I was happy with. The villain side, what's your take overall?
Not the strongest villain.
Yes.
Yeah. But I don't think the story was made for the villain, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
The superhero fighting the villain.
Okay.
I think the story was a redemption story.
Yeah, okay.
And then the villain was just a part of that story.
Yeah.
And done well.
Yeah.
Even though it was a small part.
Okay.
Yeah, so in terms of the villain, not the strongest we've ever seen.
Yes.
Ever in the MCU or DCEU or whatnot, or in comic book superhero movies. But I think it fit the story well, because the story was Black Adam coming to terms with his power.
Okay.
And, getting his redemption.
Yeah. Okay.
Saving his people.
I was on the fence, quite unsure how to feel about it and all of that. But yeah, you convinced me. You make quite a good point as far as it wasn't what their focus was.
Yeah.
That being said, I like that it was almost like more the idea, because the whole time it was about chasing the crowd. Yeah. So they kept it more on the idea side of things, as opposed to the whole time saying he's our big bad. So I think, that's how they struck a nice balance.
Easy storytelling, you could say he overcame his demons, literally.
Yeah, by also defeating the demon himself. And no, I can mess with that, Though that being established, I like the guy's design, and I felt like I wanted a little more from him, If it's, a little more destruction, a little more whatever, I did enjoy the people getting a chance to fight for themselves as well.
That was nice. I mean, as you say, the city was one of the characters,
yes.
The city and the people, and it got to show.
Yeah. And it wasn't just, save us, all high mighty ones, They were also like, nah, fam, I'm going to pick up this axe. I'm going to get to work, on these skeletons. So that element I enjoyed. But again, on both fronts, a little more of that in-city fighting between the skeletons and the people, and a little more of some destruction, from the demon side would have just, pushed that quite nicely for me. I don't know, before I move on, is there other things you want to highlight?
No, I think that's...
Okay,
I'm
so
happy
with
what
that
we've highlighted.
established, before we even get too low lights, I think this one also has an element of missed opportunities.
Okay.
I've got a few. I'll start off and then you let me know if there's others. Granted, we have to acknowledge that this was meant to be, the beginning of something.
Yeah.
So
the revival, basically.
Yeah. So certain things were probably going to be answered later on in that whole thing. Number one, the backstory of the Justice Society with Amanda Waller, because with Suicide Squad, it was proper established what their point is, what they're about. And that being said, though, I do go back and forth in my mind about, am I just impossible to please or what?
Because did you really need more?
That's what I'm saying. Sometimes, like when they show you something, you're like, man, why did they show us? You could have just moved on. If they move on, I'm like, why didn't you show us? So, but let's establish what was necessary in this one.
So I don't know. I think I didn't mind it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't mind it. Maybe a little bit. I guess I'm playing both sides of the fence. Yeah, I didn't mind it, but a little bit more wouldn't have hurt.
Yeah.
Because he was like, just point us in the he's like, point us in the direction and we get it done.
Yeah.
So just as to, are they her other hunting dogs? Because I'm assuming Suicide Squad are also in the extended universe.
Of course, yes.
So then, who is she now? Is she
yes. And that's my Amanda thing. Waller, again, I'm holding them to their own standard. Yeah. That's why I feel it's a relevant thing to bring up, right? Because with Suicide Squad, it was quite clear. It's like the Black Ops team. Yeah. Because remember, they were like, heroes don't kill, whatever. Amanda does. Yeah. And it's like, if she wants killing to be done, she's got the guns for it. That's the Suicide Squad. But with this one, even if it wasn't like a whole 15-minute sequence or whatever, but just something to drive it all home that this is the point of these guys. Again, perhaps it was meant to come through at a later stage. We don't know. I don't necessarily need to see how they came together. No, that's fine. Because, Hawkman and Dr. Fate, they have a backstory.
We've seen these characters before.
It's fine that, they don't go back to, how do they meet and whatnot. Fine. But for me, it's more the ties between them and Amanda Waller that I think, needed to be. Because she's presented to us as a stone cold killer, and that's that. So now it's like, why all of a sudden do you care about, if it's a simple matter of after the Suicide Squad mess, we needed something to clean up our image or, just, put it on the table. The other one that jumped out, but I think this is a lot more obviously something that was meant to be expanded upon later. That little prison that they have with all those people that are suspended, where Black Adam was.
Yes.
I'm like, no, there's like 1,000 peeps out here.
Who are these guys?
So, something there.
That would have been, if they wanted an opportunity, like Guardians of the Galaxy when they went to the Collector. And they're walking through and you see.
All the different, So again, just as simple as, what's the point of this thing? We know, damn it, August is Amanda Waller's team or company or whatever. They have a black side prison. I forgot what it's called now.
So
and I think that underground one, whatever, and also where they had the Suicide Squad people. And it's like, this is where we keep the baddest of the best, worst of the worst. Say something to speak to what the point of that thing is. Is it people we are trying to flip? People who are trying to, paint the picture. I think that would have been nice. Those are pretty much the two standouts for me. I don't know.
Obviously, you would have liked to see a Shazam cameo.
Yes,
if it was possible.
A little tie in there, I think would have been dope.
It would have been better if, at the end you've got Superman confronting Black Adam. If it was, I would have preferred Shazam confronting Black Adam.
You're
like, hey, you look like me,
Although it would have had to be in a different type of story so that it makes sense for the homie to, step in. But I do get where you're coming from.
Because they really made Black Adam to be like a world-threatening. Will be to threat, and what is it? Was it Waller? She was like, I know people from other planets who'd be able to, defeat you or something like that. There was something like that.
I can't recall the line.
But there was a line like that.
Okay.
It was like, okay, she's connected, and I'm assuming she was referring to Superman.
Yes.
Whenever somebody says other planets, I think Martian Manhunter as well.
Oh, okay.
Because Superman's an Earthling.
We've adopted him basically. So that's I think kind of it for me for missed opportunities.
For me, I would have liked to see Shazam in there, like all the other weebs out there. But I think that's.
And for me, even if it wasn't maybe Shazam in the flesh, but just some acknowledgement that this is not the first time we're doing this.
Or you know what I mean? Like the Wizard took Billy and had that whole story with him about why he was chosen to be a hero. Do the same thing with the son, with Black Adam's son. Just to show that it's the same. If that makes sense.
I get you. my defense for that is I feel as though his backstory kind of spoke for itself.
Okay.
In terms of why
he was chosen.
Yeah. So I think that's kind of how they covered up for that. But yeah, for me, like a general tie-in to I mean, the Wizards. Okay, they never came back. Okay, fine. Because I was gonna say again, acknowledge that you've done this with other people, but technically speaking, they did this 5,000 years ago, and then Billy's one was a few years before, and so there wasn't a proper crossover there. Okay, that but I suppose a little cameo or mention or something would have been dope on that front. Any lowlights as far as that just wasn't it, man.
I don't think I had lowlights. It's one of those movies where it's okay.
Yeah.
But there's nothing, in my opinion.
Yes.
There's nothing like that really stood out and was like, no, I can't deal with this.
My point again. So each time I watch this movie, I'm like, what the hell are those other people on? But hence my context building in the beginning, which is just they know the story. And as much as you don't always expect a copy and paste, certain elements are just so true. It's almost like making a Superman movie that all of a sudden he's not from Krypton. Yeah. Some things you just can't mess with. So,
and maybe that is the case here, but obviously we don't know the full backstory.
No. We're not tied close enough. But yeah, to our benefit in this case, I will say. So
clean slate.
Yeah.
Then from your side, any lowlights?
I'm 100% with you. I was also like, there wasn't anything where I was like, no, this is what I will say is much, not a low light for me. I know it's most likely a low light for the public. I just want to acknowledge and address it. In a similar vein to Gal Gadot, who gets a lot of flack about, she can't act, this, that, whatever. The Rock also gets that. He can act. He's definitely shown it. It's just a lot of times he chooses to just be The Rock and whatever. Here's my defense, especially when it comes to the Black Adam and the Wonder Woman characters. For me, I have always looked at that as it's almost like not necessarily a portrayal, because I know they're not doing it on purpose, just kind of how they, act, essentially. But the way I always interpreted it is that they are from another world. And this is just their fish out of water portrayal, so to speak. And I felt no different watching this movie. I didn't feel, this guy is compelling, he's embodied it. I was like, no, here and there he's a little off, but if you look at the character's a little nuts.
Yeah.
He's a guy walking up 5,000 years out of his time, whatever. So I chalked that up to that. So on both fronts, I was always willing to shoot them bail when it comes to, those two specific characters. And this was no different for me. So it was not a low light on my end, because I basically have a little headcanon story that I apply each time. And so I think with all that covered, final thoughts, any honorable mentions,
I think we did all the honorable mentions.
I
was like very surprised to see Henry Cavill at the end.
Oh, did they?
Cameo. Yeah, it's like a mid-credit.
I tend to skip those.
It was a mid-credit scene. Yeah.
What was the scene?
Oh, it's like he flew down. He was like, "I hear you're Black Adam. We have some talking to do."
Okay. So they did tease it in the movie as well.
They actually teased it
as part of the what's this when the movie's launching, the promo tour. The Rock was very, very vocal about when I go fight Superman and so
they actually teased it.
I wasn't aware that even in the movie. Okay, that's pretty cool. Again, I suppose, speaking of missed opportunities one more time, that's yet another one. But and then another lifetime, another universe maybe.
How many Superman verse movies can you make,
That's another thing, it's like everyone wants a shot at, the top guy. It ain't easy being number one, But all right, cool, man. With all that established, that's pretty much all our thoughts in a nutshell. Again, I was super pleasantly surprised by this movie. Still don't understand the flack and the hate, and it's actually one I wouldn't mind revisiting somewhere down the line.
It's definitely a rewatchable movie.
Yeah. No, I proper enjoyed it. Cool. Then that's pretty much it from our end. If you made it all this way, shout out as usual. Catch us, on Instagram at the Phantom Geek Zone. Hit that like, hit that subscribe. Before we do need to hit the big one, our ratings and our top 5. So I'm giving this a solid 7, man.
Okay, I'm leaning towards 6.
Okay. Yeah. That's that for me. 6. I don't know if it makes it to the top 5 though.
I don't think it cracks the top 5.
Yeah, I'll definitely acknowledge that it doesn't. But it's it's peeking through the window.
Yeah.
I'll give you that much. It's certainly peeking through the window. But, just to get everyone up to scratch. So our top 5, we've got Man of Steel, number 1. We've got the Snyder Cut, Justice League, number 2. Very important to make that distinction. We've got Batman v Superman at number 3. We've got Wonder Woman 1 as number 4. And then The Suicide Squad. That's our closing movie.
That is the second movie.
The second movie, not
is very important.
Yet another distinction that needs to be clarified. Yeah. That's that. And then, man, shout out. We'll check you all at the next one then.
All right. Peace.
Peace.